Welcome to Big Wide Ocean, Strategies for Worry-Free Business. This book is about business failure. It's designed to teach you how to avoid business failure and therefore get a successful business. I started writing the book about 5 years ago, but unfortunately I never got an opportunity to finish it. But I've decided that I'm going to publish this book in 2014. But for 2013, what I thought I'd do is I'd produce a series of videos. Think of it as a serialization, particularly for approachable lawyer subscribers and Facebook fans. So each video will be about 10 minutes long, and we'll release them every couple of weeks so you can get your sneak preview of Big Wide Ocean. The first video is all about what you should know before you jump into that business ocean. It's called Look Before You Leap, and I really hope you enjoy it. Chapter 1. Look Before You Leap. You take a deep breath as you compose yourself. As the sun rises over the horizon, it draws you like a magnet to start running towards the end of the pier. Your heart quickens as the anticipation rises. Your legs kick against the wooden decking and you're off. Now you are committed. The end of the pier draws closer and then you jump. Eyes open, all you can see is bubbles. You didn't realise the water would be so cold. From the outside it looks so inviting. Then something brushes your feet. You retract your legs and start kicking. Do you swim back or do you keep going? Standing on the pier, everything seemed so tranquil. The sun glistened on the big wide ocean as it popped its head over the horizon. The blue of the ocean seemed to be begging you to jump in. Many people have felt exactly the same way when going into business for the first time. The prospect of going it alone seemed too good an opportunity to pass up, but often the reality is not the same as the expectation. The water may be colder than you think. You may get swept out of your comfort zone by the current. And then there are the perils and predators that live beneath the ocean. So is making the leap the right decision for you? Consider the following. Have you confronted the brutal reality of taking the plunge into the business ocean? Do you have the personality of a business owner or an entrepreneur? And is your timing right? Now here's a health warning. The first few videos of this series can seriously damage your enthusiasm for business, but don't panic. It's a deliberate strategy for you to confront the brutal reality of being in business. The remaining videos in this series will teach you how to survive in business and become successful. If you can get through the first few videos in one piece, then you have the enthusiasm for going into business on your own. So have you confronted the brutal reality of plunging into the business ocean? Statistics show that between 33 to 43% of businesses fail in their first 7 years of trading, depending on which statistics you read. Now, when statistics are produced, they tend to focus on real business failures, in other words, where the business has become insolvent. However, there are many cases where the business simply fails to live up to the expectations of the business owner. That doesn't necessarily mean that the business has run out of cash. It may simply be that the business owner finds him or herself working excessive amounts of time in the business only to generate a very modest profit. All of a sudden it dawns on the business owner that the business doesn't warrant the investment of time, energy, or stress. So the business becomes another statistic and it gets sold, being added to the long list of statistical business failures. But if you were to ask the business owner whether the business venture was a success, he or she would in all likelihood say no, simply because his or her goals were not achieved. The statistics therefore may not be totally accurate reflection of business failure. And that's not good news if you're thinking of going into business or have done so already. So before you make the leap into the big wide ocean, or even if you have already made the leap, pause for a while to reflect on what you hope to achieve. What is your motivation? Because when things get tough in business, and things will get tough, it is your motivation to succeed which will get you through those tough times. Now, generally, there are 3 reasons for going into business. You may relate to one or more of these 3. They are to obtain more freedom and time, to earn more money, or to create a valuable asset which you can then sell or pass on to your children. Let's look at each in turn. Work had become a drag. Even getting up in the morning seemed like hard work. It was almost like being in jail with no way out. It never used to be like that, but after 5 years with the company, the work no longer excited Jerry. He could see that the company was losing money, and he had identified ways of turning things around. But his boss had always been sceptical of new ideas and preferred the old ways, which until now had proven successful, but times were changing in the industry and the company was losing traction. The alternative for Jerry was to find another job, but vacancies in Jerry's field were scarce and were unlikely to offer much more money. On the other hand, Jerry had become an expert in his field. Starting up in his own business would give him the opportunity to test his ideas and earn more money, but most of all give him freedom. No longer would he be tied to 4 weeks holiday per year and an 8:30 to 6 p.m. workday. He would be his own boss, answerable only to his customers, and could employ his own staff to do the work for him. Having staff to do the work for him would allow him to follow his other passions of travel and sailing, which is really what he wanted to do. With that to look forward to, motivation should not be a problem. So, Jerry made the leap. Now, Jerry's story may be familiar to many business owners, and for many, the freedom of time is the most valuable of rewards in having a successful business. Yet, whilst many business owners seek freedom of time, not all achieve it, even though they may make more money. The 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. workday turns into the 14-hour workday. Your clients and customers become your new boss, and your business demands that you take no holiday. Weekends are also lost to the business, and family life suffers. This can be endured for a while, but eventually something has to give. So the original motivation is lost, and the business becomes another statistic on the pile of business failures. The sad thing is, this all could have been avoided. This video series explains how. Alison's dream was to own her own house all to herself, but rising property prices seemed to be pushing her dream further and further away. The sum needed for a deposit was getting larger and larger. Alison had started saving some time ago, but her salary wasn't keeping pace with the property market. Promises of a pay rise had not materialised. Rival companies were offering a similar rate of pay, so the only option was a promotion. And that's when it dawned on her. Even if Alison became the best that she could be in her field, as an employee there would always be a ceiling on her salary. When she started work, her salary offered security and the ability to pay the day-to-day bills. It even offered her a reasonable standard of living, nights out with the girls and the odd dinner out with her partner. But that was all. Saving to achieve her goal would take a lot of time, even if she followed her career path to the end. Setting up her own business, however, offered an alternative. Her income would be dependent upon her success, not someone else's. Alison thought long and hard and decided to back herself. So, Alison made the leap. Unfortunately for Alison, after 3 years in business on her own, she was only earning marginally more than she could in the employment sector. By the time she had paid her taxes, overheads and other expenses, she felt that she hadn't really progressed any further. Although self-employed, it was really just another job. Alison realised that to achieve her original goal, being self-employed wasn't enough. She needed to create a real business. In other words, a business that would generate revenue for her, regardless of whether she was working on the business or sitting on a beach. This video series suggests strategies for doing that. When Sam Morgan sold Trade Me to Fairfax newspapers for millions of dollars in 2006, John was ecstatic. Not because John knew Sam Morgan or was about to share in a part of Sam's newfound wealth, no, simply because John wanted to be an entrepreneur just like Sam. The news of the sale fueled John's desire to set up his own .com company. Even if his business could be worth half of what Trade Me sold for, John would be a very happy man. As John read the story of how Sam Morgan had got his idea for Trade Me after a fruitless search for an electric heater, how he used to live with his parents, never got a degree, and worked tirelessly for weekends to promote the website, John felt a kind of affinity. If anything, John had more going for him, a great idea and a good degree. Surely John could be just as successful. He thought so, so John made the leap. 10 years later, it wasn't the lack of a good idea which prevented John selling his business, it was the lack of a real business. Suddenly, John realised that a business was much more than a good idea. A business was a robust structure built on a solid foundation at which lay policies, procedures and watertight agreements that allowed the business to be run by anybody, not just him. By having these in place, there were fewer risks in the business for a potential purchaser. The goodwill and the intellectual property were protected by rigorously enforced an intellectual property policy, and there was no substantial risk of litigation. Most importantly, the customer base was loyal and had the potential to grow exponentially. Unfortunately for John, the due diligence process carried out by his potential purchaser led up so many red flags that the offer was shortly off the table. John's dream of selling his business for substantial amounts of money quickly faded. He had two options: either reduce his asking price considerably or invest more time and money getting the business structure right. Neither option was particularly attractive, and whichever he chose, John knew that his retirement plan would need to be put on hold for a few years yet. John wished that he had got it right the first time around. So if your motivation for going into business is to build a valuable asset, which you can later sell or pass on and retire, this video series will set you on the right track for building a sustainable and robust business. If you walk into any high street bookstore, you will see many books about business success. Each adopts a different theory about how to create a successful business: teamwork, motivation, inspiration, leadership vision, innovation. Some come from a marketing perspective, some from a leadership perspective, and others from a strategy and execution perspective. The various theories on offer can make very confusing reading for someone in the early stages of setting out in business. Now let's face it, not every business owner wants to create a business as successful as Walmart or Cirque du Soleil. For most, just getting through the first 7 years in one piece is a good starting point. Now, this video series doesn't offer a magic formula for business success. What it does is offer simple strategies to prevent business failure. By preventing business failure, you give yourself a launch pad for a very successful business. You see, fortunately, business failure is a science. It is predictable. If you take any failed business and chart its business history, you can identify where the business owner went wrong. That is because it comes down to a simple equation. Cash in must be greater or at least equal to cash out. Now, this equation will not necessarily hold true in the early stages of the business. In fact, very often it's the other way round. The important thing is that year on year, the gap between cash in and cash out is getting smaller and smaller whilst improving the capital value of the business. So to make the equation swing in your favour, you must either generate more revenue or spend less, and preferably both, whilst creating a valuable asset. In other words, you need to increase the earnings ratio on every dollar invested into your business. This video series will not tell you how to make more money. For that, there are plenty of books on the bookshelves. This video series teaches you how to protect your earnings ratio. So as you stand on the pier looking out onto the big wide ocean, it may seem inviting and calm. What you can't see is the temperature of the water and what lies beneath the ocean, the predators and the dangers that make your life as a business owner tricky at times. The trap many business owners fall into is making the leap without appreciating what they are in for once they have taken the plunge. Very soon, they run into trouble, and no matter how good their product or service may be, the earnings ratio gets damaged, sometimes irretrievably, so that the business never recovers. So before you make the leap, consider what lies beneath the ocean. Confront the brutal reality of what building a business is all about. This video series will give you a route map to building a business on solid foundations and will give you an insight into what lies ahead. It will help you confront the brutal reality of business and then give you strategies for overcoming the pitfalls.
Well, I really hope that you enjoyed that video. If you did, please like our Facebook page, maybe give us some feedback and certainly share it with your friends. In the next video, we'll be looking at what is the personality of a business owner or an entrepreneur. So stay tuned.